Welcome to the Workers' Reading Room. Tonight I will be reading Chapter 18 of F.I.S.T. by Joe Eszterhas. But first, a quick recap. In the previous chapter, Johnny begins negotiations on a national contract between F.I.S.T. and the National Trucking Association, headed by Philip Talbot, son of Winthrop Talbot, the man that Johnny and F.I.S.T. battled decades ago. After tense negotiations, Johnny successfully negotiates the contract in F.I.S.T.'s favor, with the agreement entailing that Johnny stop any wildcat strikes that may occur in the country. Later, Johnny meets with Babe Milano and agrees to lend Milano money from the union's pension fund, despite the fact that Johnny is being targeted by Senator Madison. The chapter ends with Johnny going to California to visit Abe, after learning that Abe is leading a wildcat strike. Abe refuses to stop the strike, and Johnny refuses to back him, so they once again leave each other with major conflict. And now, F.I.S.T., Chapter 18. There were more than 500 people in the grand ballroom of the Sheraton Cleveland, many of them from Shaker Heights and Hunting Valley and Pepper Pike and Gates Mills. Women who belonged to the Junior League, and men who sipped their noonday martinis inside the cathedral walls of the Union Club. The women wore evening gowns specially ordered for the occasion. The men were black-tied, their manner as stiff as their collars. It was a testimonial dinner, a civic occasion in a city of few civic occasions. And so Mayor Norris was there, a beaming ward boss of the old school chosen by the suburban old-money Union Clubbers to run their city for them. And the governor had sent his top aide, Martin Kalb, who hated Johnny Kovac, hated the way he had to get down on his knees every 4 years to get the union's support, but who sat next to Johnny and Anna at the speaker's table, and who was now saying in his most earnest manner how much the governor regretted that he couldn't come himself. The owners of the Cleveland Indians and Cleveland Browns were there as well, as were 4 congressmen, 8 judges, and an entire table of churchmen. Philip Talbot stood up after the plates were cleared and stepped up to the microphone. He squinted into the cigar smoke drifting in gray-blue clouds toward the top of the red velvet curtains at the sides of the room. He smiled and told a few clumsy jokes cribbed from the pages of the after-dinner speaker's manual, and then he talked about Johnny Kovac's accomplishments and career. And after 5 minutes of that, he paused and looked over at Johnny and he grinned. "Those of us who knew Johnny Kovac," Philip Talbot said, "and I must say he and I met under some somewhat strained circumstances." The audience laughed. "Know that Johnny Kovac is a man of his word. That's only one reason why the city of Cleveland is proud of him, why we're here tonight in his honor. But I'm especially happy to introduce to you a man who has often been witness to Johnny Kovac's personal generosity, the Archbishop of the Diocese of Cleveland, the Very Reverend Edward C. Mooney." Archbishop Mooney was a Cleveland institution, a man with the fragility of old bone china. He spoke in hushed, dramatic tones which underlined the import of each of his words. He said he had known Johnny Kovac for many years and had always found him a strong, generous, and compassionate man, a Catholic in the finest sense of the word. "Whenever the need arose," the bishop said, "when Catholic charities looked like it wasn't going to meet its goal, when the diocese organized our sheltered workshop for the retarded, Johnny Kovac and the Federation of Interstate Truckers were always there to lend us a hand. So it is my great honor tonight, as a small token of this city's feeling for one of its favorite sons, to present Johnny Kovac with this check for $85,000 to be used for whatever charitable purpose he desires." The audience applauded. Johnny got up and shook hands with the bishop. He took the check. "Thank you, Bishop Mooney. Thank you very much. I really don't know what to say." The audience laughed. "It's a hell of a long way from here down to the flats." The audience laughed again. "I know what I'm going to do with this check, though." He paused. "You know, when I was growing up in the flats, I wondered if the day'd ever come when anybody, no matter how poor, would get the best help a doctor could give. This check is going to be the start of that kind of a hospital, the Joe Kovac Memorial Hospital, in the memory of my old man." The audience applauded. Johnny smiled. As the Wildcat strike against Trans-Bay Freight in San Francisco went into its third day, Abe Belkin got an official notice from F.I.S.T headquarters in Washington. It was short and to the point. The strike was unauthorized and had to be called off immediately. Abe smiled to himself when he saw the signature at the bottom of the page, Vincent Doyle, General Vice President. Later the same day, other California union officials who had earlier sworn support to the Wildcat expressed second thoughts. Al Howard down in San Jose called Abe and said he had come to the conclusion that the Wildcat was ill-advised. Trumbull Maxwell came down from Sacramento to see Abe. He told him he was in a no-win position. Every local west of the Mississippi had been notified to withdraw support of the strike. And over in Oakland, Tom Babcock, who controlled an East Bay empire even larger than Abe's San Francisco territory, said in no uncertain terms that there would be trouble unless Abe fell into line. Abe called a meeting of the striking drivers. He read the message from F.I.S.T headquarters and told the men of the follow-up calls. Then he asked the drivers for their decision. They voted unanimously to continue the strike. At daybreak the next morning, Abe made his way to the Trans-Bay Freight Line's truck terminal on the Embarcadero, the main street along San Francisco's waterfront. The morning was the color of plumber's putty. The air was chilly and damp. A mist clung to the ground, and as the Embarcadero yawned with morning's first stir, men with upturned collars, their hands thrust deep into their coat pockets, moved toward the glowing yellow lights and brewing coffee of the waterfront cafes. Toward the sea, the steel prows of ocean cargo ships and giant concrete pier fronts all but obliterated the view of the bay, leaving a jumble of boom derricks, boat davits, and ship stacks on the horizon. On the far side of the Embarcadero, away from the docks, were brick warehouses painted with black and white graffiti, rustling railroad tracks from an earlier day, and the truck terminals, among them Trans-Bay. And looming over it all, like a giant silver rainbow curving up and into the fog, was the Bay Bridge, the 8.5-mile structural connection to Oakland. It was an area near the part of town called Tar Flat. At 7 o'clock, Walt Simmons, Abe's right-hand man and vice president of the San Francisco local, was already on the line, organizing pickets along the chain-link fence and gate bordering the truck depot. Walt was a small man, about 5'6", but he had strength and tenacity of purpose that far outweighed his physical size. The son of a farmer, he had served both Abe and the local with unswerving loyalty for 4 years, frequently at the expense of his family. Walt Simmons considered the Federation of Interstate Truckers the most important thing in his life. "If it weren't for the Federation," he always said, "I'd still be driving a hay wagon in Livermore." "How many you get?" Walt Simmons grinned as Abe walked up to the picket line. "What?" "Calls. How many death calls?" Abe smiled. 4. "I got you beat," Walt Simmons laughed. "I got 5. Walt looked at the row of silent Trans-Bay trucks nudged into the terminal docks behind the fence. "Way I see it," he said, "they're going to try and bust out from inside." "No way," Abe said. "They're going to bull their way in." An hour went by without incident, then another and another. The Embarcadero's morning rush slid into a midday hum, and along the picket line the 40 or so drivers abandoned their militant spacing. Many of them sat down with their signs. Walt Simmons was the first to spot them. They came down Rankin Hill, straight from Pier 24, then made a right turn onto the Embarcadero. They bore down on the pickets slowly, a row of 2.5-ton panel trucks, unmarked except for the Ford nameplates on their engine hoods. They slowed as they reached the picket line, passed at a crawl, then turned and made a second pass. On the far side of the street across from the pickets, the trucks pulled into a weed-strewn vacant lot next to a gas station, a telephone booth nearby. They lined up as if offering themselves for a review, then cut their motors. The cab of each truck contained a driver and a man riding shotgun, and for long minutes the new arrivals in the pickets studied each other. A powerfully built man with black hair and a pockmarked face finally got out of the lead truck and slammed the door. He wore heavy twill pants and boots, with a gray flannel shirt tucked beneath a broad leather belt. He carried a clipboard in one hand, some rumpled papers clamped beneath the silver clasp. The man crossed the street alone. He walked directly to the main knot of pickets. "Abe Belkin?" he said. Abe looked at him coldly. "That's me." The man nodded. Then he looked at his clipboard and began to read, as if from a writ. "You got an unauthorized strike here. We've been instructed, National Office, Federation of Interstate Truckers, not to honor this here picket line." "Who instructed you?" The man glanced down at his clipboard. "Vincent Doyle, General Vice President." Abe looked at him. "Every man on this line is a member of the Federation." "We got our orders," the man said. "Okay, you've got your orders," Abe said. "Now take a look at this truck terminal." His voice was hard. "There's one way in and there's one way out, right through this gate. You want to come in? You want to ignore this picket line? Okay, but you're going to have to run us down." "Suit yourself," the man said. He turned and walked back across the street to the vacant lot. The other drivers, now out of their trucks, gathered around him. The man talked to them, then walked to the telephone booth. He dropped some coins into the slot and dialed. Across the street, Walt Simmons said, "Looks like the shit's in the soup." The big man in the gray flannel shirt stayed in the phone booth more than 15 minutes. Then he hung up and walked briskly to his truck. "That's it, let's go," he said. The engines roared and the trucks exploded with life. The lead truck, driven by the pockmarked man, headed straight for the gate. It was followed by a second truck. The other two trucks swung out, one toward the pickets on the left, the other towards the pickets on the right. 10 feet from the pickets guarding the gate, the lead truck stopped, but off to the sides, the flanking trucks bore down on the two ends of the picket line, and when they reached the ends, the rear doors of the trucks flew open. 10 men jumped from each. Their fists were clenched and they swung clubs and blackjacks. With collective instinct, the pickets broke and headed for the flanks. "No!" Abe screamed. "Get back to the gate!" Walt Simmons heard his warning and pushed and dragged 4 or 5 men with him as he threw himself in front of the gate. At that moment, the lead truck shot forward. There was no warning. The man with the pockmarked face simply slammed the accelerator to the floor. He didn't brake until he was halfway through the gate. Walt Simmons screamed, his left leg under the truck's rear tire. The truck ground into reverse and the right tire rolled over Simmons again. There was a sudden hush. Then someone shouted, "Let's get the fuck out of here!" With grinding, wrenching noises, the trucks backed away from the pickets. Abe bent over Walt Simmons, covering him with his jacket, holding his face. "Walt," he said. "Walt." Simmons was white and cold. He coughed once and was silent. Abe cradled him in his arms. Tears rivered his face. Johnny sat in his office with Vince Doyle, watching the television set. The television reporter said, "Union organizer Walt Simmons was dead on arrival at San Francisco General Hospital. 2 Federation organizers from a San Jose local were charged with the killing. Abe Belkin, the president of San Francisco Local 43, said his local was ending the Wildcat walkout." On screen, Abe said, "We're going back to work because I don't want any more of my men getting killed. You've got more punks and hoodlums in this union than you've got decent rank and file." The television reporter said, "In Washington, Senator Cole Madison of Rhode Island, the chairman of the Senate Rackets Committee, said he will hold public hearings to probe alleged underworld ties to the union." On screen, Madison said, I just don't think we can stand by and see people killed because they don't follow Mr. Kovac's orders. Will you call Kovac to testify? The reporter asked Madison. Madison smiled wryly. I don't see why not. Johnny shut the set off. He turned furiously to Doyle. I said push him, Vince. I didn't say kill nobody. Nobody wanted to kill anybody, Johnny. It was an accident. An accident? He shouted. A fucking accident? You think Madison's gonna buy that? You think Abe's gonna buy that? What the fuck you want me to say to those fucking reporters out there? I'm sorry? We didn't want to kill nobody? We just wanted to squeeze them? He walked behind his desk. God damn it, Vince, he said. God damn it. An hour later, when he walked down the steps of the F.I.S.T. building and the reporters besieged him, he was calm and composed. What's your reaction to Senator Madison's announcement, Mr. Kovac? Madison's got no evidence, Johnny said. This union's clean. I think it's a real insult to the working man in this country. Why do you think Senator Madison is holding these hearings? Johnny grinned. Maybe the 8% hike I got the men's got something to do with it. Some of the reporters laughed. Listen, this is nothing new and you fellas in the writing game know it. The average guy in this country is always getting screwed by the big money boys. They used to use shotguns and baseball bats on us. Now it's politicians. What about Abe Belkin's statement? I'm glad he ended the Wildcat, Johnny said. Our contract says no Wildcats, and as you know, we live up to our agreements. But what about the hoodlums he says are in your union? I'm sorry, but I didn't hear him say that. But he says there are hoodlums. Look, fellas, I don't know what he said, but I do know that he was speaking rash, probably on account of what happened. I've got a lot of respect for Abe Belkin. He's a great union man. We're all sorry that guy Simmons was killed in that fight. Even if he was in an unauthorized strike, I'm going to make sure that his family gets all the benefits. And let me tell you something else. The union's going to make sure all the facts come out about what happened. I've instructed my assistants to begin our own investigation. In his office the next day, Cole Madison sat with Dave Roberts and Charles White, an ebullient young speechwriter only a year out of Yale. Senator, Charlie White said, I'm only thinking about all this in terms of a presidential campaign. Cole Madison poured coffee for them from a silver container. If I decide to run, he said. Charlie White grinned. Well, of course, but I think we should. You guys are so damned eager for me to run, Cole Madison said. He laced his coffee with a shot of cognac. Well, consider the possibility, Charlie White said. Cole Madison laughed. The possibility, Charlie? Well, yes, sir, Charlie White said. All right, Charlie, Cole Madison said. I hear you starting to itch. Let's hear it. I certainly don't want to see us trapped in an anti-labor posture, Charlie White said. And judging from what Kovac said yesterday, he's going to try to... He was good, Cole Madison grinned, wasn't he? When you look at those big industrial states, Charlie White said, his voice trailing off. Cole Madison lounged back in his chair. I think we can get most of the labor vote, he said. Going after Kovac? Charlie White said. Madison grinned. Look, Kovac's got tremendous popular support, I know, but let's say we can knock some of the halo off of him. Let's say we can prove some of the things we suspect. I think a lot of the other union heads would abandon him. I don't understand, Senator, Charlie White said. Why? Because I don't think they want to be investigated themselves. Some of these other unions aren't Snow White either. I think they'd condemn Kovac to curry favor with us. Dave Roberts laughed. If that's true, I wouldn't be surprised if you got their endorsements. I wouldn't either, Cole smiled. If I decide to run. Jesus, Senator, Charlie White said. That's a brilliant piece of strategy. No, it's not, Madison said. It's a lot of political crap, that's what it is. Kovac scares me. Talking about his push. That's why I want him. This guy lives it. It's in his eyes. With his power unchecked, his friends. What if he applies that push against the government? The government, Charlie White said. But certainly you don't think. Wake up, Charlie, Cole Madison said. Johnny Kovac could shut this country down. John Howard Harper, the Federation of Interstate Truckers' new legal counsel, was one of the most highly priced corporate attorneys in America. A civilized and genteel man in his mid-60s, he sat in Johnny's office and puffed his handmade Savinelli. Bernie Marr was just presented the circumstances of Walt Simmons' death. Perhaps we should make some gesture of cooperation, Harper said. Johnny looked at him angrily. Fuck Madison, we ain't cooperating. Listen, counsel, this is no Boy Scout troop we've got. Madison thinks he's such a big deal. Let him try to serve his subpoenas. Well, if you want my advice, Harper said, you should at least revoke the memberships of the men charged with Simmons' death. I'm revoking nothing, Johnny said. They got carried away, that's all. They were members in good standing. We're going to pay their court costs. We're going to see they get their salary. While they're in jail? Harper said in disbelief. Hell yes. It's a mistake, Mr. Kovac. I advise you against it. Johnny smiled. Thanks. That's what I'm paying you for, counselor, to give me advice. Harper returned the smile. It is indeed, Mr. Kovac. He paused. How about this man Belkin in San Francisco? Will he cooperate with Senator Madison? Johnny laughed. Abe? Listen, I know Abe. We had a fight, that's all. He's pissed off. He's been pissed off before. I don't know, Johnny, Vince Doyle said. I'm not so sure. He's got his head in the clouds, Vince. He don't know what makes the world go round. That's just Abe. All right, Harper said. Let's assume that's true. But how will we handle Madison? I'll handle him, Johnny said flatly. But how will you do that, Mr. Kovac? Johnny laughed. Bernie, he said, what'd we get on Madison? 0, Johnny, Bernie Marr said. The guy's clean. Clean? Johnny said bitterly. Nobody's clean. What the hell's wrong with you, Bernie? Cole Madison, meanwhile, was finding it difficult to line up witnesses willing to testify in front of his committee. He visited Max Graham at his home in New Jersey, and when he asked him to testify, Graham laughed at him. I've been with the Federation all my life, Graham said. I've got my pension. What do you want me to do, lose everything? We could subpoena you, Cole Madison said. Graham smiled. Go ahead. It wouldn't do you any good, and you know it. I wouldn't give you a thing. Off the record, Mr. Graham. Come on, Senator, Max Graham said. There is no off the record. Johnny Kovac got the membership the biggest pay raise in our history. He paused and laughed bitterly. He's a living legend, Senator. When he visited Abe Belkin in San Francisco, Cole Madison got no further. He barely got through the front door. Abe looked at him suspiciously and didn't mince words. You're wasting your time, Senator, he said. I'm not going to testify against Johnny. But why? If you don't like what he's doing, because we've got a union. I don't know if you really understand what that means, Senator. Johnny and I built it up. You're asking me to tear it down. What if it's larger than that, Mr. Belkin? What if Kovac's power becomes a threat? Abe smiled. To what? To the country. What if? Abe grinned. I'm not going to fight with Johnny in front of a Senate committee. I'll settle it inside the union. Madison laughed. You're an idealist, Mr. Belkin. Maybe, Abe said. What are you, Senator? In the limousine back to the airport, Madison said, if only I could get Belkin to testify. He's the key. You'll never convince him, Dave Roberts said. Can you imagine what he must know? I've got to get to know Kovac better. Maybe then I can somehow reach Belkin. What are you going to do, Senator? Dave Roberts laughed. Invite him to dinner? Madison looked at him. Dave, you're a genius. No, please. I was joking. Why not, for God's sake? A formal dinner with Kovac in the middle of it? I'm going to enjoy it. He'll be completely off balance. You don't even know that he'll accept the invitation. Madison laughed. He'll accept. Don't you worry about that, Dave. He'll accept. A uniformed doorman watched as a cab, its front fender bent and rusted, pulled behind the long row of parked limousines in front of Cole Madison's Virginia mansion. The doorman moved to open the cab's back door, but before he could manage it, the cabbie himself bounded out and pushed him out of the way. The cabbie, a sweaty, fat little man with a smile all the way down to his kneecaps, opened the door and said, "Here you go, Mr. Kovacs, sir." Johnny climbed out of the back with Karen Chandler. She looked stunning in an evening gown that matched her hair. Johnny wore a dinner jacket which was slightly wrinkled. He shook hands with the cabbie, then he and Karen walked up the steps to the mansion. Cole Madison, with Kitty at his side, greeted them. "You remember Karen Chandler?" Johnny said. Madison smiled. "Of course." Johnny grinned and looked at Kitty Madison. "Mrs. Madison, I heard you were an attractive woman. I heard wrong. You're gorgeous." Kitty Madison laughed. "Thank you. You didn't tell me about Mr. Kovacs' charm, Cole." "I always liked blondes," Johnny grinned. "Yes," Cole Madison said. "Your wife is blonde, isn't she?" Yeah, Anna's blonde. We're all getting a little older, though. She's back in Cleveland." Madison smiled. "How unfortunate." "Please excuse me," Kitty Madison said. "As long as you promise I'll see you later on," Johnny smiled. "Oh," she laughed, "you'll see me, Mr. Kovac." She greeted some other guests and Cole said to Johnny, "Well, how is everything at the Federation?" "Subpoenas all over the place," Johnny said. "It's a snowstorm." "Is that right?" "Some guys come around with them yesterday to a local in Detroit. They almost got hit by a car." Madison laughed. "Miss Chandler, didn't you work for the Ways and Means Committee at one time?" "For several years." "Yes," Madison smiled. "I thought I heard your name, making the rounds." "Like yours, Senator?" Karen Chandler smiled. Madison laughed and stopped an elderly couple nearby. "I'd like you to meet Ambassador and Mrs. Lawrenson," he said. "Johnny and Karen Kovac." Madison stepped away with a smile. Johnny laughed. The ambassador and his wife, gray-haired patricians, stared at them. Nobody knew what to say. "Well, Ambassador," Johnny said finally, "what country you working as ambassador to?" "I'm the ambassador to the Vatican, Mr. Kovac." "Jesus," Johnny said excitedly. "I'm happy to meet you." He thumped the old man on the back and grinned. "You mean you actually know the fucking Pope?" At dinner, Johnny and Karen were seated next to the ambassador and his wife. The old woman turned to Karen. "Do you help your husband to recruit his men?" she asked. "Well," Karen Chandler said, "sometimes I help him, but actually he—" "She ain't my wife," Johnny said. "I beg your pardon?" the old woman said. "She ain't my wife." The old woman looked at him open-mouthed. "Hell," Johnny grinned, "that's okay. Don't worry about it." When the wine was poured, he tasted it and, raising his voice, said to Cole Madison, who was sitting at the other side of the table, "This is good wine, Senator." Madison smiled. "Thank you. You ever stomped any grapes?" The others at the table stopped eating and stared dumbfounded at him. "I never have," Madison grinned. "It's terrific. My old man used to make some wine in the basement. I'd go down there with him. We'd get our shoes off, stomp the grapes." "Really?" Madison smiled. "Used to make great wine. Tastes better, you know, if you stomp it yourself." Madison laughed. "This is good wine, though," Johnny said. "My favorite wine's Hungarian wine. Best wine in the world." "I've never had Hungarian wine," Madison said. "You ought to try it." "What do you recommend?" "Egri Bakaver." "Egri Bakaver? You got that pretty good," Johnny said. "What does it mean?" "Bull's blood." "Bull's blood?" Madison laughed. "They just call it that." "I'll try it," Madison said. "You really oughta." The other guests started eating. Johnny watched them, then picked up his lamb chop and started to chew it loudly. The others at the table gradually noticed and stopped eating, except Karen, who started to laugh. Johnny looked up and grinned. "This chopped coal?" he said. "Jesus, it's 100%. He winked at Madison and started chewing on his bone again. Alone with Madison in his den after dinner, Johnny walked around the spacious, comfortable room and examined the cut glass ashtrays and Chinese vases. "So this is how the stinkin' rich live," Johnny smiled. "Quite a performance you put on out there," Madison said. Johnny grinned. "What do you mean?" He walked around the room looking at the photographs on the walls. Madison saw him looking at a picture of him in lieutenant's uniform. "You were never in the service, were you? High blood pressure, wasn't it?" Johnny grinned and looked at him. "I'll make you a deal." Madison smiled. "What kind of deal?" "We cut the shit and get down to whatever we're here for." Madison laughed. "No deals," he said. "Everybody makes deals," Johnny said. Madison opened a humidor. "Cigar?" Johnny looked at the cigar and smelled it. "What is it?" "Davidoff, Havana." Johnny smiled. "I smoke pierogies sometimes." "Are they Italian?" "Scranton, PA, union made." Madison laughed. They sat down and Madison lit his cigar for him, then lit his own. They puffed on their cigars, watching each other through the smoke, smiling. "What is it that we're here for?" Cole Madison said. "We're here to talk politics," Johnny said. "Oh? What aspect of it?" Johnny grinned. "Vote getting." Madison puffed on his cigar. "Difficult business, vote getting." There was a pause. "You know something," Johnny said, his voice low. "There's other ways of getting votes." "I could say I don't know what you're talking about." "Yeah, but you didn't ask me over here to tell me that." Madison laughed, then looked at him seriously. "I've got an old rule. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely." Johnny grinned. "So?" Madison said. "Your power is pretty absolute." Johnny laughed and puffed on his cigar. "I've got an older one than that. Fight fists with fists." "Is that a threat?" Madison smiled. Johnny grinned. He slowly took an envelope from his pocket and threw it on the coffee table between them. Madison looked at it. The name Dorothy Rohr was neatly printed across it. Johnny laughed. "Open it, Senator." Madison smiled and opened the envelope. He withdrew 3 photographs of a young blonde woman and placed them on the table. He stared at the pictures. His smile faded. "Get off it, Senator," Johnny said viciously. "You can't win." Madison looked at him. He collected the pictures and put them back in the envelope. He threw the envelope across the table. "No deal, Johnny." "Just think," Johnny smiled. "You could have been president." 3 days later, in a small banquet room at the Washington Hilton, the young blonde woman, Dorothy Rohr, stood before a battery of microphones and television cameras. She was in her mid-20s and wore no makeup. Her hair was cut short. She held a dimple-cheeked little girl, and next to her stood her attorney, a moon-faced man in a shiny black suit. "Have you heard from Senator Madison since the baby was born?" a reporter asked. "Gentlemen, please," the attorney said. "Please, I'm sure you all appreciate that this is a moment of great emotional anguish for Miss Rohr." The reporters laughed. "I will only say that she has had no contact with Senator Madison since she left his employ," the attorney said. "Intimate or otherwise?" a reporter asked. "Both." The reporters laughed again. "Has he paid her any money since?" "He paid her $1,000 as a going-away present," the attorney said, "when Miss Rohr left his employ. I have a thermofax of the check here." He held up the thermofax for the photographers. "Why is she suing him after all this time?" "Gentlemen," the attorney said, "she just wants this lovely little girl," he pointed to the little girl, "to have a father. That's not asking too much, gentlemen, is it?" The reporters laughed. The little girl started to cry. The newspapers were spread out on Cole Madison's desk. The front pages were all monopolized by pictures of Dorothy Rohr and stories of his paternity suit. Madison glanced at the stories, shook his head, and grinned. Dave Roberts and Charlie White watched him. "Maybe we should postpone the hearings," Dave Roberts said. until this business fades off the front page." "Not a chance," Madison said. "Not a chance." "What about the press, Senator?" Charlie White said. "Charlie," Madison said, "I want you to write me the most fervent categorical denial you're capable of. I want it to sizzle with moral outrage. I'm shocked by the bald nature of the lie, so on and so forth." "It's character assassination, Senator," Charlie White said. Madison grinned. "Don't overdo it, Charlie." He looked at the newspaper again and scrutinized a picture of Dorothy Rohr. "She looks downright virginal here. I wonder what she cost Kovac. Dave, see if you can find out." Roberts nodded. Charlie White looked at the paper. "Halfway virginal, maybe," he said. "What?" Madison smiled. "She certainly didn't get halfway pregnant, did she?" The Senate caucus room was a stately chamber with vaulted ceiling, red carpets, arching windows, marble pillars, and glistening chandeliers. Cole Madison sat at the center of an elevated table, Dave Roberts behind him. Senator Carnes sat at the table's end and smiled for the photographers. The room was filled with spectators and reporters. Cole Madison banged his gavel and said, "We will call our first witness, Mr. Frank C. Vasco." Frank Vasco was a broken and haggard man who looked older than his years. He sat at the witness table alone, his shoulders slumped, his head down. His speech was halting, his manner tentative. Responding to Cole Madison's questions, he talked about the small trucking firm he had once headed in Chicago. He told how Johnny Kovac visited him and told him to sign his men up to the union. His voice breaking, he described how 4 men broke into his house one day and took his wife into the bedroom, tore her clothes, and threatened to rape her. Cole Madison paused. The room hushed. "Mr. Vasco," he said, "had they tried to convince you to sign your men up before Mr. Kovac paid the visit?" "Yes, sir." "How?" "Their business agents came to the office. I got phone calls." "What did Mr. Kovac say when he visited you?" "He said if I didn't sign up, then some of the other companies wouldn't." "Anything else?" "It was a long time ago, Senator." Vasco paused. "But before he left, I'll never forget. He said, 'Merry Christmas, Frank.'" "But you didn't sign up," Madison said. "No, sir." "Why not, Mr. Vasco?" "Senator, my men voted not to join the union. I wasn't going to make them do something they didn't want to do." "But you signed up nevertheless after what happened to your wife?" "Yes, sir." Madison paused. "Mr. Vasco, what were the personal consequences of what happened to your wife?" Vasco hesitated. "Well, she was afraid, Senator." "Can you be more specific, Mr. Vasco?" "To go out onto the street, to shop, to go to church. She said they were following her. She kept the house dark at night, rolled the shades down during the day. They were watching her, she said." "Did you go to the police?" Vasco looked at Senator Carnes and hesitated. Carnes watched him poker-faced. "Yes, sir," Vasco said. "District Attorney, Cook County, State of Illinois." He kept his eyes on Carnes. Madison saw him looking at Carnes. "What did the district attorney say?" "He said there was no connection between the union and the men who did what they'd done to my wife." "I see," Madison said. He conferred with Dave Roberts a moment, then continued. "And what was the district attorney's name?" Vasco looked at Madison a long moment before answering. "I forget, Senator." He lowered his eyes to the table. "Do you, Mr. Vasco?" "It was a long time ago, Senator," Vasco said, his voice low. Madison paused. "Yes," he said finally, his eyes on Vasco's. "It was." He changed his tone. "You sold your trucking company?" "With our hospital bills and everything," Madison interrupted him. "I only have one more question. I know this will be painful to you. Believe me, Mr. Vasco, I wish to cause you no more pain." Vasco smiled. "I know that, Senator." "Was your wife institutionalized after what happened to her?" "Yes, sir." "For how long?" 2 years. There was a buzz among the spectators in the hearing room. Some of the reporters hurried out of the room toward the telephones. "What are you doing now, Mr. Vasco?" Madison said. "I run a body shop in Cottonwood, Arizona." "Why did you move there?" "It's a small place, Senator," Vasco said. He smiled. "A pretty place. A lot of trees, big skies. I knew nobody was going to bother us there." That afternoon, Babe Milano sat at the witness table, smiling, oozing confidence. Asked if he would tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, he said, "Absolutely." It got a big laugh. "State your name, please," Cole Madison said. "Senator, you've been investigating me for I don't know how long. You've sent me a million subpoenas." He paused. "Senator, you don't even know my name?" The spectators laughed. "For the record," Cole Madison said, "Anthony Giuseppe Milano, 2 P's in Giuseppe, Senator." "And your occupation?" "I'm a businessman." "And your age?" 63, Senator, but Jesus, I feel younger than that." The spectators laughed. "And your address?" "The Palms Hotel, Las Vegas, penthouse suite. It's got a hell of a view, Senator." The spectators laughed again. Cole Madison smiled, then looked at him seriously. "Mr. Milano," Cole Madison said, "you're a friend of John J. Kovac's, aren't you?" "I know him, sure." "How long have you had this friendship?" "I don't know. A long time, Senator." 5 years, 10, 20? "Closer to 20, I'd say." Madison smiled. "Now, Mr. Milano, you have quite a lengthy arrest record, isn't that right?" Milano grinned. "Well, I got into some scrapes, if that's what you mean, Senator. A long time ago. I'm not going to deny it. Can you give us a list of your arrests?" "I can't recall, Senator. I know I beat up a guy pretty good once in a fight. He was Welshing on a bet. I'm glad I did it too, Senator, the no-good son of a—" The spectators laughed. Madison looked at a piece of paper Roberts handed him. "Extortion, bribery, suspicion of murder, suspicion of conspiracy to commit murder. Isn't it a fact, Mr. Milano, that you are one of the leading figures of organized crime in this country?" Milano smiled. "I'm a businessman is all, Senator. I'm trying to make a living like everybody else. Besides of which, there's no such thing as that." "No such thing as what?" "Organized crime. The reporters just make it up for the headlines. They gotta sell their papers. They gotta sell the ads for the TV. I don't blame them, Senator. They're just businessmen like you and me. They're just trying to make a living like you and me. I don't mind, Senator." "You don't?" "Hell no, Senator," Milano grinned. "They don't make much." The spectators laughed. "I see they've been writing a lot about you too lately, Senator." The spectators laughed again. Madison grinned. "I don't believe that stuff about you either," Babe Milano said. Madison smiled. "Thank you very much, Mr. Milano. I appreciate that." "Any time, Senator. But tell me, Mr. Milano, isn't it a fact that for the past 30 years you've personally known most of the dangerous criminals in this country?" "I don't understand, Senator," Babe Milano said. "Do you know Albert Grimaldi?" "Sure," Madison smiled. "Do you see him often, Mr. Milano?" "Not no more, Senator." Milano paused. "He's under the ground." The spectators laughed. "Did he die of natural causes?" Cole Madison asked. "I wouldn't say that, no," Milano said. "Why not, Mr. Milano?" Madison was straight-faced. "Because he died in the gas chamber in Pennsylvania." The spectators laughed again. "I see," Madison said. His eyes twinkled. "How about Robert Battaglia, Mr. Milano? Do you know him?" "Bobby's under the daisies, too." The spectators laughed again. "And how did he get such an intimate view of the daisies, as you put it?" Cole Madison asked. "He sat down in an electric chair, Senator," Milano said. The hearing room exploded in laughter. "Was he also a friend of yours?" Cole Madison asked. "I knew Bobby, sure." "Now, Mr. Milano," Cole Madison said, "since these men were executed for their crimes, don't you think it's fair to say they're dangerous criminals?" "They're not dangerous no more, Senator." The spectators roared. "You're right there," Madison grinned. I think I know what you're getting at, Senator. I'm glad. But it's not fair. I know thousands of people in this country. I know senators and governors and congressmen. I can't help it if some of the people I know sometimes get into trouble with the law. Do you introduce your friends to each other, Mr. Milano? Well, sometimes, sure. Milano's lawyers consulted with him. Have you ever introduced any of these men, Cole Madison said, these criminals that are friends of yours, to your friend John J. Kovac? To Johnny? Milano said, surprised. His lawyers talked to him again. Please answer the question, Mr. Milano. I don't know, Babe Milano said. I'm trying to think. I've got a lot of friends. You aren't answering the question, Madison said. To the best of my recollection, Milano said. I cannot recall. I see, Milano said. He paused. Can you recall, Mr. Milano, that you own the major interest in the Aquacade Entertainment Corporation of Las Vegas? Sure I can recall, Milano smiled. It's all in my income tax forms you've got, Senator. Thank you. And didn't the Aquacade Entertainment Corporation recently negotiate a $1,200,000 loan from the pension fund of the Federation of Interstate Truckers? Milano consulted his lawyers. That's no secret, he said. We're building a new casino that looks just like Miami Beach, swimming pool on the main floor, water skis, cabanas, and you can gamble right there. The spectators laughed. Did you talk to your friend Mr. Kovac about lending you the money? Cole Madison said. I talked to the trustees of the pension fund. They approved it. We've got security down. Our payments are on time. But didn't you talk to your friend Mr. Kovac about giving the loan to you? Madison's voice was strident and accusing. Nobody likes to negotiate with him, Senator, Babe Milano said. Jesus Christ, I'd rather talk to the trustees any day. The spectators laughed. Did you or did you not talk to Mr. Kovac about it? I'll tell you the God's truth, Senator, Babe Milano said. That will be refreshing. I can't recall. The spectators roared. Milano smiled. Madison looked exasperated. Cole Madison leaned back in his Senate office that night, a bottle of Chivas Regal in front of him. His feet were on the desk. He looked worn out and dispirited. What do you think, Dave? Well, Dave Roberts said, it could be worse. Madison laughed. How? Vasco was effective, Roberts said. He got a lot of TV play. Madison looked at him. That's really great, Dave. I'm overwhelmed with how great that is. I almost hate to bring this up, Senator, Roberts said after a pause. But what happens if Doyle and Kovac both take the fifth? Charlie White laughed. We're up shit creek. Madison glanced at him sharply. As they say, Senator, Charlie said. Madison glared at him, then turned to Dave Roberts. Kovac won't take the fifth. He's going to make Milano look like the amateur hour. What about Doyle? Roberts said. Madison took his feet off the desk. I hope he does, he said. God damn it, Dave, I hope he does. Once he takes the fifth, he has to keep taking it. He paused and smiled ruefully. No matter what I ask him. And that is the end of Chapter 18 of F.I.S.T. Thank you for listening to the Workers' Reading Room. Have a good evening.